Hello and welcome to this short video showing how to set up the Blueback Tracker. In this episode we're going to move on from the installation and start to populate the Tracker database with our Petrel projects and data. In this exercise we're going to use the Tracker to set up some scanning tasks and options, choose some folders to scan, choose some different execution options, run a quick test, and then refine it so that we can capture more projects and data. So just a quick status check on where we are. We have a tracker installed here, but as you can see there's no data yet populated into it. So the first thing we're going to do is open up the tracker administrator, and you'll find this under C drive, program files, Schlumberger, Petrel, extensions, and then Blueback Project Tracker, and this is the default installation directory for Petrel plugins. So I'm going to open up the tracker admin.exe, and then what I'm going to do is create a new configuration file. Let me find a logical place to save this, or if I say C drive Blueback, I'm going to create a folder called config and one for my log files, which I'll use later. So under config I'll put my default tracker. So once this opens up, the first thing we should really do is make sure we connect to the tracker database. So I'm going to come to this database connection tab and type in the server, which is localhost/SQL express, and then enter the database name, which is tracker, and then of course I can test that connection and I get a database connection successful message. Let's press save. So now what I'm going to do is start to run or start to build up a picture of what I want to scan and install. So on the first tab here in scan data, you can see you're asked to choose everything that you want to first of all scan on the left hand side, all the data to include. On the right hand side you have then which objects to add a spatial extent to, and whether or not to investigate open spirit data. So I'm going to turn this one off for the purpose of my scan, and I'm also going to limit the spatial to maybe just the reference data types to make things easier. We also have an option for hash code generation, which helps you identify duplicated data, and in my case I'm only really interested in maybe wells and 3D interpretation that might be being duplicated, so I'm just going to keep those two on. Next we want to define some folders to scan. So because this is my test scan, I'm going to choose something quite small that I know I can have a fixed number of projects in. So if I just remove this folder and say browse, I'm going to add this little test directory here, and I'm actually just going to keep it in this directory. This toggle here signifies if you'll scan the directory as recursive, but I'm just going to keep that off. And then I want to give the folder an appropriate tag. These tags help you distinguish projects later on when you're doing your analysis, so it's appropriate to give them a good name. But in my case I'm just running a quick test, so let's say test. Everything's okay here for just now. The next thing I'm going to do is move to the Petrel tab, which defines the execution options for Petrel. So here the next step, what you have to do is, if you move the tracker to one side, we should start Petrel. And this is in order to see which license package we should use and which license level of the tracker that we have available to us. So here it looks like I should probably use this package 3 license, and I can also see that I have tracker 1,000 projects, utilities and spatial extension available. So in order to set that as a default, I'm going to just start Petrel with this, and these selections will become the default. While that's starting, I'm going to change this to package 3, adjust this to 1,000, and I'm also going to change this Petrel timeout to something like 1800 seconds, since some of my projects are quite big. I'm scanning with Petrel 2012, so I don't need to worry about lock files, since we can do that read-only. And I'm going to not use this option here, which is to keep a single Petrel open. So we're just waiting for Petrel to start up. We can see that we have some tracker icons under the project menu just to confirm that it's working correctly. So now I'm just going to close Petrel, and that writes a configuration file based on the settings I chose when I started it up. So the next thing we have to do here is to define a log file for the tracker. So I'm going to select output directory and choose my Blueback/logs directory, give it a name for the log file. Everything looks in order. So we're pretty much ready to begin test execution based on this path here. So what I'll just do first is save my configuration file, then go to crawler execution and say scan, analyze, measure, and then just press play. And we should start to see some things appear here in the display. So when the tracker starts its execution, it's going to scan the folders that we have and list any projects that it finds. So here it says I found this project here, gulfax.pet, and the clue to that it's starting to do something is you see this do work statement here, where it's executed Petrel with the tracker licenses, and then it's just a matter of waiting and seeing what happens next. While it's running, you can see this spinning disk here, which indicates that something is in progress. And then, as you see, it will update this log as it goes through every step of the process. So it's begin to scan this Gulfax project. It opened the project, took 13 seconds to do so. It saved the project with ID number 1. It used a couple seconds to scan the project, a total of about a minute, and then it moved on to the next project. So while this is just scanning the second or third project in this directory, we can just take a look at the log file. So here you see it's just the same that's being written out to my message log here, based on what the trackers are doing. So there we are, it's beginning to scan the second project, and hopefully that just takes a few seconds to complete as well. There we are, again, just about a minute to scan it. Okay, now it's moved on to another project, and if I believe it's the last one. So you can see here from the log what the tracker does is that it executes Petrel every time it reads a project, then it closes Petrel and reopens it. So the time spent scanning smaller projects can be quite nominal in comparison to the time it takes to start Petrel, check out licenses, and open the project. But granted, if you repeat this over many hundreds of projects, then you add up to some time. So the tracker's just finishing the final project in this directory now, and we'll start to move on to the next options. So I now see that it's finished, since it's no longer spinning, and we get this repeat of our config file at the bottom. It ran through the final steps a bit quick because there's not so much data to check, but what we see is that once it finished scanning all the projects, it makes a quick report of everything it did up to this point. So number of folders scanned 1, which contained 4 projects, and all were scanned successfully. And then it gives us a average time, so it took about a minute for each project. It then moves on to analysis of the project. So what it did now was it analysed the relationships between the 4 projects, analysed the data items, and then checked for any duplicated seismic files. Then it executed the measurements and just finished with a repeat of the configuration file. So if I come back now to my tracker web and refresh it, I now see that I have these 4 projects inside the tracker, and that these projects contain then all their data and such that they should for the tracker. So that was a successful test of setting up the tracker to run on this machine. The next step is to come back and repeat this process by adding in new folders, for example, like my tracker demo projects, setting them to scan recursively, and then just running. If you're working with a lot of disks where you're uncertain where the projects are, you may want to just limit the execution options that you have selected for your first run. So what you can do is just start with a basic scan, which just collects some basic information from the projects and doesn't do any intensive data analysis. So hopefully that was enough to guide you through a quick setup of the tracker, and as always, if you have any questions, please get in touch. Thanks.